Imagine. Imagine being born into extreme poverty. Imagine having little or no education. Now imagine both your parents dying while you are still a child. How will you survive? Rosie is an orphan living in Tanzania, East Africa, one of the poorest countries in the world. She is just 16. I was 13 when my parents died of AIDS. My older sister and I went to live with my grandmother, but she was suffering from an eye disease and almost deaf. My sister had to get married while I continued to live with my grandmother. My grandmother had a small banana farm. My sister and I worked on the farm. We were able to survive by selling bananas. When my father died, I was in 5th grade, and my mother died when I was in 6th. I completed 7th grade and passed the test so I could continue with secondary school, but there was no one who could help me continue. I didn't have school fees, I didn't have money to prepare my uniform, or even money for food where I was going. Now imagine a village where the people band together to build a school for the orphans. A school built with their own hands. A school built of thatch, bamboo, and bark.
My trip to Tanzania in 2008 was by far the most difficult one that I've taken of the several I've done. 3 weeks before I arrived to Tanzania, my contact and guide there died. He had previously gone to a place in rural Tanzania, and he had organized the local people into a self-help group that wanted to do something for the orphans. So I went anyway with another person to guide me and to interpret. The next day I was escorted to a small field down the road from where I was staying. As I came around the corner, I saw a small bamboo structure with a thatched roof and bark stretched around it for walls. This was introduced to me as the Mwaji Secondary School. Inside were a bunch of orphan secondary school students. They could only put in 42 at a time, but they had 84 students, so they taught in shifts. The teachers were not certified teachers, they were volunteers, and they got no pay for what they were doing. This was truly a community effort to try to do something to help themselves.
There was a woman who came to the village where I was living. She said, "Don't stay at home. There is a school that supports orphans." And she took me to the Mwaji Secondary School, which is free. And so I began to study.
I got to visit with some of the students there. I was able to visit with the teachers. I was able to learn more about what the community wanted to do. The community gave the land as a donation to the school, but they really had no funds. The people in this rural mountain village are incredibly poor. They had no resources, and of course, orphans don't have resources. They were doing the best they could. Inside this small school room, they sat on a single plank of wood about 4 inches wide, and that was their chair for the day of school. There were no other buildings. This was exclusively where the entire school operation took place, except for a couple of holes in the ground with some bamboo and leaves around them, which were their toilets. They had no water, there was no well, and there was no food. The kids would just walk for many kilometers or miles to come. It was clear to me by their presentation and showing me what they had done that they were sincere about getting help for all of these kids. Orphans Africa was asked to help them build a school to help educate these kids so that they could have hope for their future. The school, as I envisioned it, would need to be similar to one of our other more mature projects. Instead of a bamboo shack that's going to be eaten by bugs blown down in the wind and the rain, water coming through the roof, they needed a cement-built structure with bricks and mortar. They needed a tin roof. They needed floors. They had no books and supplies. They needed teacher curriculum. They needed something that would really work. More than just the bricks and the mortar, more than a physical structure, they were looking to Orphans Africa for help and for hope. The person who had organized them had died. They didn't know who was going to be leading them. They had no resources, and they were desperate.
To lose a parent is not the end of my life. I believe that one day I will succeed. I want to someday go to university and become a nurse. It's a work I like very much.